Now, one of the most effective way of improving your listening experience, if you have a little stereo system, or whether it's a big stereo system, one of the most effective way to improve your listening experience is by practicing good speaker placement. You know, where you place your speakers or how you place them within your listening space can determine, you know, it's not going to make or break your system, but it can determine how much better your listening experience can be. You know, so having you know, your speakers placed in an optimal position on your floor, you know, in my opinion, can make a huge difference. And a couple of things I'd like to touch on today. You know, a couple of ways you can go about this in terms of positioning your speakers and setting them up so that they are, you know, they are giving you, you know, you're getting your money's worth from them, so to speak. It's not just about, because it's not just about amplifiers. It's not only about the DAC. It's not all about your turntable and all of that. You know, where your speakers are located on your floor, or, you know, makes a huge difference. So how can you go about this? One of the first things you can do to kind of get going in terms of good speaker placement is, you know, define your listening position. When I say your listening position, I mean where you're actually seated. You know, determine where where you'll be sitting, and find that sweet spot, so to speak. Yeah, and one of the things that audiophiles preach, but it's not just audiophiles. This is almost scientific. I'm sticking my neck out here, guys. But the way where you sit, you know, in terms of the distance from your speakers, is very important. And it is said that the best way to position yourself in terms of where you're sitting is to sit at a spot that forms kind of an equilateral triangle, meaning that you know, you have a speaker over there and another one over there, so that's two corners of the equilateral triangle, and then where you're sitting is going to be the third corner of the triangle. So you're creating this equilateral triangle, so to speak. And it is said that you know, doing that can vastly help to, you know, to project a better stereo image. You know, you get, you know, you can actually get better stereo separation just because of where you're actually sitting. Another thing you can do to kind of help you with proper, you know, proper speaker placement is, and this is going to vary depending on your room size. Ideally, place your speakers about 4 to 8 feet apart, right? You know, we all have different listening spaces in terms of size and all of that. So what may work for me may not actually work for you, because, you know, some people have I may have a more cramped space than you have. You may have a dedicated listening room, while, you know, another person may not. A good place to start is to place your speakers about anywhere from 4 to 8 feet apart. You know, they can go wider, but let's start anywhere from 4 to 8 feet apart. You know, and like I said, this will depend on your listening, how big your listening space is. And just by experimenting with the distance of the speakers away from each other, can also help you kind of, you know, improve your stereo imaging so much better. A third way that you can actually improve your listening experience in terms of speaker placement and all of that is to try to get your speakers at ear level. So I'm sitting here, at least try to have the tweeters at ear level, so that the sound is not projecting over your head, especially the mid-range and the tweeter and the upper mid-range frequencies. They're not projecting over your head, or they're not way below you. So if you're using stand mounts, it would be a good idea to get stand mounts. I mean, it's not going to make or break the system, but if you can get your speakers at least to a point where at least you have the tweeters and the upper the mid-range somewhere at ear level, that will definitely help with stereo imaging. Another thing you can do too is you can toe in your speakers some more. What I mean by that, and this all comes down to experimenting. All right. When you talk about toe in, it's a matter of just angling the speaker drivers towards you. So this is going to take quite a bit of experimentation. So depending on where you're sitting, you might want to angle the speakers a little bit, toe them in, so to speak, so that the drivers are actually facing you. The drivers are actually firing the sound towards you, rather than they're firing the sound frequencies past your ears. So like I said, this all comes down to experimenting. Just toe in your speakers a little bit, and this is something that you'll have to do gradually, until you find a spot, or until you find a position where there's sound just right, the toe in or the positioning sound just right. So experiment with that and see how it goes. Another way that you can improve the quality of your sound as it relates to speaker placement is by it's not a good idea to have your speakers too close to you're in a space where your speakers are up against the wall, right? If you can pull them away from the wall a little bit, even 2 or 3 feet away from the wall, just so that they are not up against the wall. I mean, like I said, we when it comes to space, everybody has a different lived experience as it relates to how much space we have and how much space we can afford. But as a good rule of thumb, it's a good idea not to have your speakers up against the back wall or too close to a back wall. If you can pull them away towards you, maybe 2 or 3 feet, or if you have a bigger space, if you can have them out in the middle of the room somewhat, that's much better. Part of the problem with having them too close to the back wall is that especially, let me just just put an asterisk on that, especially if the bass ports are on the back of the speakers. If the bass ports are on the back of the speakers, then you stand the chance of getting what is called, these bass bump, this bass boom, so to speak. Your speakers can your bass frequency can turn out to be a little bit boomy, just because of the reverberations, but from being too close to a wall behind you. And it's also not so much a good idea to have your speakers too much into a corner. I know a lot of people, a lot of people, including myself, have done it in the past, and I still do it to a certain extent when it comes to subwoofers, placing them in a corner. You seem to get more bass, but it's not a good idea for your your other speakers, your main speakers. Don't have them pushed up into a corner too much. you want to give them space to breathe, space to play. So yeah. That's another way you can improve the quality of the sound coming from your speakers in a significant way. But overall though, everything that I've said so far, everything that I've mentioned so far, it all comes down to experimenting. You have to take some time to kind of fine tune your system. And when I talk about fine-tuning, I'm really talking about the speaker placements. Play something that you think have good stereo imaging, good stereo separation, and listen. Experiment. Play different tracks from songs that you think have good stereo imaging, good stereo separation, and just listen. Listen and tweak. As you listen, just make small adjustments here and there. Move your speakers, further apart or closer, further to you or maybe back. Toe them in a little, or in or out. Just keep experimenting until you get a sound that is pleasing to your ears. You're getting good separation, good stereo separation, good stereo imaging, a nice sound stage, and it's amazing just by doing making these slight little changes. It's amazing how much improvement you can actually make to the quality of your sound. The quality of the sound that you're getting, how much this can actually improve your listening experience. Okay, so let me hear your thoughts in the comments. What do you think? How do you go about setting up your speakers? How do you place them? How do you do you put a lot of emphasis on speaker placement? Is it something that is important to you? Or maybe you're the kind of person who just buys some speakers, you just lay them out, and you just get into the music. How do you go about it? Hit me up in the comments and let me hear. All right. If you think there's something that I have missed or forgotten to mention, let me know. If there's anything that you think that I could have added, let me hear about it as well. And if there's anything that I may have fudged, you can also let me hear about it too, okay? So don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and if you love the channel, don't forget to subscribe, all right? So until the next video, you take care of yourself.